and introduce everybody here?
Sure,
So you know everybody?
MJ, pleasure. Your name? Yes, with pleasure. Yeah, good to see you again, Mayor. It's an absolute pleasure. Mr. Greg?
Hey.
How you doing again? Thanks.
Good.
Lindsay.
Nice to meet you, Lindsay. Hi, Kevin. How are you? It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay. Does the council want to talk about on law? I would call for a vote again. But my feelings are, when I first was appointed to this job, I asked if there was going to be a conflict of interest between me working as a bailiff. I have a conflict of interest. So there's other conflicts of interest in my feeling. We have a council member that's a sister to the state's attorney, ambulance driver that's related or works with the chief of police wife ambulance. So
There's other conflicts also.
like what?
Another one that gets a lot of jobs from the county. We want to start going with stuff like that.
You get jobs from the county, Jay, I'm sure.
Like a bid competitive contract in one time, I guess, against other companies.
Yeah. Which is work for the county. I mean, if we're gonna go there, we're gonna go there.
I think it's been gone there before, because we had a meeting, I believe, Sunday, and I was advised by you that there might be a conflict of interest because of the meeting that Craig Cross and Craig Dillon and all had. Because Craig Dillon is on the tribal council, and I work for the tribe. I'm a hired person, not an elected person, and that same thing could be said for you, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Faith, but the tribal council has the authority to exclude anybody that's a non-member off the reservation, which includes you, because you work for the ones. So I don't understand where the conflict of interest stuff is. I think that's a term that's thrown out there lightly and not really researched. And with that said, and I know, Mayor, you brought it up, I just want you guys to know that I have submitted my letter of resignation from the council, because I don't feel that my goal was to make life in Martin better, to improve it as well as law enforcement, and I don't feel comfortable stapling my name and my reputation in law enforcement to in the direction that law enforcement is headed right now. So therefore, I am resigning my position as a city council member effective after this meeting.
My thought that I had, council, was last month, we voted all in favor of our chief of police hiring more people. We all agreed to that. We also agreed, all of us agreed, to help the cost for one of the officers to move down here. Now all of a sudden, a month later, we're trying to change that, I feel. So I don't understand why a month ago, all in favor of chief of police hiring extra officers, and now all of a sudden, you're looking at combining, and from my understanding with the county, is that they only need 2 officers. So we got full staffed finally as city, because we've never been really full staffed. Now we are full staffed. And we haven't even, I guess what I'm trying to say, I just don't understand why you hire 3 extra guys or 2 extra guys, and then you turn right around and talk about combining law, and the county has come to us and, or has said that we only need 2 guys or whatever. So the other guys that we just hired a month ago, you know, they're just SOL.
I don't believe all that's fair. The reason that Brandon or Doug hired the people is because they were getting burned out. I mean, there's only so many hours that a guy can do.
I've said that many times before.
Now, our law board and the commissioners' law board were supposed to meet and come up with some figures. I know the county law board representative is gonna be here tonight. And if we go into executive session, I'm inviting them, this council, the chief of police, the sheriff, and our attorneys to sit in on this executive session. I'm not gonna face these phone calls day after day of people calling me complaining about people, city police officers running stop signs, making U-turns on Main Street, arresting people and citing them for 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, a mile over the speed limit, working radar on the highway, which was never part of the agreement. And we're either gonna change things or.
Can I interject there? Nobody was cited for doing 3 miles over, 1 mile over. Nobody was cited for any of those things.
Okay,
But on the same note, how many people were pulled over by an officer that's not radar certified?
I don't have those figures. So,
You're the supervisor, you should have those figures.
I don't have
You
those.
should be accountable for the people that are policing under your name, right?
Yes.
And if they're not certified, they shouldn't be running radar. Did you know that that officer or those officers also tried to pull over 2 law enforcement vehicles?
Yes, after you told me that.
And I believe, how many citations were issued for broken taillight, 1 taillight, headlight?
No.
Nobody was pulled over for any headlights or
You said how many
taillights?
people were cited. You didn't ask how many people were pulled
Okay.
over. So they can still pull people over for.
Did you pull your own officer over? Because he's driving around with 1 headlight.
I'm aware of that, and they just, in the process.
Ours
of
operates
for
for
that.
closes at 6.
I
There's
found
no
that.
accountability.
I guess the only thing that worries me about this whole thing is from the get-go of starting to talk about it, to me, it was just about talking about ways to improve our community, looking at options. And there's been some people that really worked hard against even bringing that conversation to the table. And that's what worries me, because it's not about anything, other than trying to improve our community for months. And just having that conversation even. But what worries me is there's how individuals have fought that so hard that we have huge assets sitting on our council that now are resigning because we can't, we just gotta talk bad about them because they're just trying to use their experience, education in that field directly, but we cannot listen to them. And it's just a conversation, yet we gotta get heated and I guess have a fight. I don't understand. We need to get more united. We're a small community.
We're supposed to be working in a common goal to make the community better.
Common goal.
And look at Diddy Avenue, and literally every time it got brought up, I was literally the messenger, but somehow I got painted as the person that started the whole thing.
Exactly.
I was told to bring a piece of paper to the council so they can look it over, and immediately I got ridiculed for not contacting people. I'll make sure the next time I tie my shoes, I call you guys. Well, not anymore because I resigned, so, but it just became idiotic. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel.
It isn't right, you guys. If we're gonna move our community along for everything, we need to be able to be adults and have conversation.
I thought after the last month, we talked about looking at a budget and coming up with a budget within the city. And the county was supposed to take what we went to the meeting about in October, beginning of November, whatever, to the sheriff, and the sheriff was supposed to get back to us about his terms, if he agreed with those or not. And that's the last thing I knew, because I didn't know that we'd heard anything back. We've been kind of looking at numbers.
I thought we kind of needed an outline of some sort of a contract, and I haven't seen one of those yet.
I don't think we've talked about contract.
We did, yeah, I did one, and I did have just some of the things that would need to be in there, and then there's some things that could be added. But there was a list of things that, my recommendation was they are non-negotiable, and the sheriff would need to get back to us and let us know if he agreed to those. And I haven't heard anything.
I haven't. I don't know if anyone else has had, that's kind of where I thought the county was at doing that, and we were looking budget-wise at things still.
And, you know, talking to some of the representatives from the county, that were present, they feel the same way I do, that literally we're just wasting everybody's time because we're just trying to prolong it. To hopefully get the full staff and get somewhere where it's making a difference. I get that, that's fine. But I just don't feel comfortable where it's going. I don't really wanna go into details because I'm not the person to point fingers. All I can say is, we'll let it play out and see how it goes.
Don,
I'll just give you a little information. I was on the council before, when we went to a combined law enforcement. Started out, it was supposed to be 50-50. And then you start thinking about it. Well, you as a city person, all of you pay city taxes. But also in essence, you pay county taxes. So if you're saying it should be 50-50, that's totally wrong. I mean, at that time, we went like 60-40, and sometimes we even talked about going higher than that. But it was also blood tests, you know, they went to the county, because at that time, they were the ones that did the DWI and stuff like that. But I don't know, you either gotta sit down and all in together and say, I want this, if you don't want it, quit. I mean, and I mean, if you get, all you're doing is getting headaches of your own, and it shouldn't be that much. And you should just, I mean, if you think about it, it should be a 60-40 or 70, 65-35 split. I mean, you're hearing my input on it. I mean, in the same way with the, at the time, we had problems on jail figures and everything, because it costs a lot of money when you talk about transporting prisoners and everything else. So if winter pulls up, you go to Gregory, and you got longer than that, so I don't know. And then I understand that winter went up in their fees. Of course, this much different than a nursing home. You look around, the ones that are closed and the ones that are open, the ones that are open are $10,000 a month. That's $120,000 a year. So I think the big thing is consider the financial cost, and if both parties, not the council, not me, if the city law enforcement, the county law enforcement want it, that's a start. But if they don't want it to begin with, there's no sense even messing with it. If you got any questions that I can answer them before, I'll answer them.
Sheriff, you wanna say a word?
I'm still for it. Still for one law.
Doug?
I think we got our staff now, and that I think, and with 2 officers having to be fired, I don't think it's a good idea.
Nobody said anything about firing anybody.
So the based off the budget the county gave to us, the one that Kevin brought, is only gonna be for a total of 6 officers. They have 4 and we have 4, so 2 officers would have to be fired.
Do you have a comment, Bob?
I do, Mr. Mayor, from a meeting of the county commission across the way here, November. A question was asked of the commission, what obligation does the city have to pay the county for law enforcement if the city decides to just liquidate the police force? Chairman Bakley responded to the question, if the city decided that they don't want to have any more law and the county can take it over, the city doesn't have to pay the county anything.
That's in regards to Lindsay's comment about if we just liquidate the city department and get rid of everybody, everybody would have. Huh? No, at our meeting, when you were talking about the 25, and then you asked the question and you made the statement that Well, if we just get rid of Martin law enforcement, the county would have to pick up the tab regardless, and we wouldn't have to pay anything. So that's the comment that they're referring to, not as if we contracted the contract. Obviously, there's monetary there because we'd have to go through a contract, which entails personnel, money, all the ins and outs.
Don?
The argument at that time was, how are we gonna handle the people, the policemen and the county law enforcement? The way we did it, we cross-deputized them, so they could, if the city was working, and if you got a county call, they go there, vice versa. County was working, and they got a city call, go there. You have jurisdiction that you can work out, you know, so it shouldn't be a problem.
I have a question for Doug. How many certified officers do you have?
Certified currently, just myself.
Just yourself? Are the new hires scheduled for academy, LET?
LET doesn't put out a schedule for that. They kind of, depending on the hiring for the rest of the state, they decide when they can take certain officers. Jay's here is the only one that's actually scheduled, and that's for March.
How many officers does the county have that are presently certified? Up to date?
2
Two? Out of how many?
out of 3 of us. Or
How many?
4.
And when do they get certified?
One goes in March, and the other one will probably be August.
Another argument at the time, you know, where you got to this part, where you said the city don't have, well, the city actually enforces the city ordinance unless they're cross-deputized. The county enforces the state ordinance. So that's another thing you consider when you're thinking about costs.
And that was one of the things we included in the contract, not the,
Okay.
the attorney brought
Yeah.
that up for the contract, that.
I just wanted to be sure you were aware of it.
One of the ways I look at it just a little bit is, everyone always talks city and county being separate. You know, we're a small town inside Bennett County, and that's, I look at Bennett County as a whole. And the taxpayers are paying into this pool, how can those dollars be most effectively dealt with to protect our county? Which, to me, includes the Martin, right? And so, for me, that's just looking at that conversation, we're doubling up on some costs and things, can those be pulled down so we can either hire another officer, have more efficiencies into the system, so that calls are, say, I mean, I've had experience with it where we have a call, one might be short-staffed, they say, well, that's a city problem, or that's a county problem. That becomes an issue, I've seen it. I'm not all for one way or the other. I would just love to have that conversation and kind of see what is the less of evils. Yeah, I guess.
Historically, you should, I mean, there shouldn't be a problem that way as far as city's responsible and the county's responsible. Dane Cummings was the sheriff at that time, most of you know, and he did a good job. I mean, and we never really had any problems until later on down the road. Then some people wanted to split it again. Well, I think you're always gonna have that. So it's up to you to make the decision what you want to do, and then go from there.
Well, I can't see a problem with, if there is a contract and those individuals join the sheriff's department, they still have to make it through LET, they still have to go through all the training to make enough people on the force that you do have 24-hour coverage, and they can handle anything that comes up, including following an ambulance and help an ambulance crew, fire trucks, everything. Barking dogs, loose cats, I don't care. But something has to be done. I'm gonna start giving out everybody's phone number so that when they call me, I can say, call these folks and let them handle it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, do you suppose our fine local newspaper could print those phone numbers as a public service?
They're all on the little green card, Gene's got 1,000 of them.
Mine's in the telephone directory. Can't be much more printed than that.
Yeah, likewise, and they were printed not very long ago in the paper.
Most people have my number.
Yeah, likewise, right? So, yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing further,
One thing to say. Kevin, I'm sorry to see you go, I wish you'd stay. I think you're an asset to the city.
Well, I thought hard about it, and like I said, there's a lot of things I don't agree with. I understand it comes with experience and knowledge, when it comes to law enforcement. And I've tried bringing it across, and, you know, I met with, comments that I can't rationalize. I can't sit back and say, okay, I don't understand how you're comparing apples to coconuts. I'm still gonna resign. I mean, I apologize for that, and I love Martin, I love the folks here. I'm a city slicker. You know, when I first moved here, I got to meet most of the folks in the country, and my mom always asked me, why don't you come back? Because I don't like the city anymore. I love where I live, and that I'm never gonna change. And, you know, for the people that think that I have a hidden agenda, good luck. I think your imagination is going a little wild. And just to put it out there, I will never run for sheriff, because that was one of the rumors out there. You see my name on the ballot, I give you the okay to come love my house and kick my butt, okay? Because that'll never happen. I think there's a lot of snake in the grass, and you know, I hate to leave, but that's where I'm at.
Don?
On the greenhouse. Also at that time, we had 14 reserves officers that worked through the sheriff. I was a sergeant, O'Brien was a sergeant, and Bob Buckles was the captain. And if we had problems, we came in and helped guys. And also, like Wounded Knee, some of that stuff that went on, the highway patrolmen, they'll ship down here however many you need. I mean, at that time, I think we had 12 highway patrolmen, because each of the reserves rode with the patrolman. So, I mean, if you run into problems, you have things in places you can call in.
Not right now, you can't. Because there's a lot of law enforcement that I know for a fact that, they're very hesitant.
They won't come out of Kadoka.
Not with everything that's going on here in town.
Because at that time, we trained with them all the time.
Right.
Blue or sheriff, go ahead.
Another thing is in my office, we've been doing door checks at night too. I decided to do that, that's even on the country and City Martin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Blue, we kind of been waiting for you. I wanted to hear what kind of the commissioners have in mind
As to,
as to our contract,
Blindsided.
I know, I gotta take it slowly.
as to a contract with city law and county law. If you prefer, we can go into executive session.
Let's do that first.
Let's do that first?
Yep.
Okay.
What are you going in?
But yeah,
Those-
let me check those extra things.
Okay.
Going on. The negotiations.
Do we have a contract? Did you draft
It's
it?
just a sample one.
Just
It didn't have like all the nuts and bolts in it, it was just the generalized, I believe, stuff from
Just
what I
some,
read.
just some bare bones that
Yeah.
would have to be agreed upon before I spend
More than
hours of time and your money.
Do we have a copy of that tonight to review as far as,
I might have one copy in my file.
I mean,
Let me just see, hold on, is that first?
I didn't remember.
it seems like it'd be nice, Bob, back in the day when we had our own jail and everything, it'd be nice to put all our efforts together and try to get a jail opened up here.
And I believe that was one of the talks that we talked about, because there's lots of Homeland Security grants, there's lots of grants out there to get our jail back either open or renovated or built a new one. And if you ever wrote grants, it's all statistics and number driven. And when you have two separate agencies, you can't count each other's numbers. It's the same thing if I have a car accident in Allen, which is still in Benton County, I respond to it, I write the accident. Technically, I should be able to give those statistics to the sheriff's office to count for a grant, but I can't.
But, and that exactly is what's frustrating me through this whole process, and we haven't been able to even get to a point, because someone's always thought there was an agenda there, to talk about items like that would improve our community.
Both the justice centers that we built, were built on Homeland Security grants. That puts court, that puts the police department, investigators, FBI, whoever has a stake in the deal in the same building, so that way when you pretty much have an issue, it's a one-shot deal when you're looking at the justice system. There's all kinds of agencies that are taking advantage of that. Sadly, we're still at the talking points of trying to figure things out.
So you can go into executive session to discuss with me, with legal counsel, about contractual matters. And that would be to preserve the attorney-client privilege, so that I could give you legal advice without it being broadcast to the world. But then you could call other people in to talk about contractual matters, because that's meant to only discuss with the legal counsel. You can, be part of it.
So I could invite,
Just me though.
oh,
But then when you wanna just talk to county folks, I can't consult with them in the attorney-client privilege, because they're not the clients, so you have to worry about.
well, unless council wants to go into executive session, we're gonna move on. And does council want this again on the January agenda? I'm not gonna call for a vote.
We don't have a proposal.
I know.
Can't vote on something you don't have.
So can we get a proposal?
I gave one to the law boards before, and so we're still waiting to hear back as to the things that I have recommended be absolute non-negotiable requirements.
Okay,
I haven't heard back from the county.
okay. Can Commissioner, you haven't seen anything like that? Okay.
We gave them to you guys that night you came in that was blue.
Well, until we hear from the county,
I refuse his resignation.
Jason needs cops ringtone.
can we,
Bad boys.
can we refuse his
You
resignation?
can try, but not legally.
No.
If he vacates his seat, it's a vacated seat, but you can ask him to please, but you can't.
One more month. Finish out your term. Go to June.
How much longer do you have?
Well, this one, because I forgot to put my petition in.
It was just
It
1
was
year.
appointed.
May.
So
May.
my
You don't
term
have
will
that
be-
much longer.
Elaine?
5 more meetings.
It's gonna hurt our council a lot to have come to
Okay.
The thing that I'm worried about is, things isn't gonna change. We've been talking about this, or talking about some of these issues now for, I don't even remember how long, 2 years, 3 years?
Takes time.
And I think that if everybody came to the table with open minds and not already have their minds made up and try to find reasons why to even shut down the talks, I think we'd be further along in this process. And I think there's a lot of distrust.
Yeah.
A lot of rumors. And I'm not with the high school crap. I graduated high school a long time ago. If I wanted that, I would have did something in high school, I guess. And my passion is in law enforcement. Like I said, I took this, my wife was the counsel before, so I took over. And that was my mission, to improve Martin and law enforcement, and it's not wanted, so.
If you do decide to resign from the council, it's up to these council members to fill your position, appoint somebody to fill it.
That's the job to you.
Won't you back?
You can stay and still be my councilman. I appreciate you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Jason, I got a question for you that I had written here. As sheriff, have you ever been approached about people not having a driver's license in our town?
Yeah, and I've dealt with it too.
Did you citation them people for no driver's license?
I've never seen them driving, I just talked to one, and I told her she could not drive.
I had a conversation with you here a while back about this said question that I just asked you. And you replied in a way that you knew that they didn't have a license. But yet you, as an elected official of law, let that person go. You let him go because of the excuse that he services you.
Why don't we don't have that conversation, we should also talk about your officer
Yeah.
who was allowing his
I'm
girlfriend to
not
drive
talking to
without a
you,
license.
I'm talking to Jason.
Or you're also-
I've asked a question, before at a meeting,
Am I not entitled
what
to
your
speak at
budget
a public
was,
meeting?
and you couldn't answer that.
I did answer that.
I wasn't talking to you, I'm talking to Jason.
Okay.
I
I'll
asked
wait,
you
then I'll
that
have my public
question.
comment.
Anyway, I just wanted to reiterate that to you. Do you know what your budget is this year?
That's like, what was it, 300 or something? 398.
How much?
398.
This year, 2023.
398 for your total law budget?
23 was 320.
324.
I don't want, no more questions. I'm done with that.
Kevin? So I was just gonna reply, the same argument can be made with your officer allowing his girlfriend to drive around knowing she doesn't have a license. So if you wanna point fingers, you're gonna have to point them everywhere.
I'm just saying I have to have one,
Correct.
okay? Why
But if
doesn't
you want-
everybody else have to have one?
But if you're asking him to target a specific person over a personal grudge that you had, if we're gonna do
What-
that, we're gonna have to target every single person with that same personal grudge.
How do you know it's a personal grudge?
Because I'm familiar with the situation.
And so am I.
Well, I can go on with this here,
You don't want to, trust me.
but I would rather have this conversation with Jason myself.
My office is open anytime, you can come in and talk.
I don't need to go to your office, I can have a conversation with you right out here.
You can have it anytime.
And this is the type, this is exactly what me and Jay are talking about.
It's
Dislike
frustrating.
about a
It's
person,
this.
so
You
you're
think that
holding
helps our
back,
community?
you're holding back the process because you
Great.
dislike for a certain person. And to me, that's childish.
If there's grudges and things like that, maybe you should be the one that's resigning.
Doug, how many people have you stopped for no driver's license?
I don't have those exact numbers,
Have you stopped people for no driver's license?
not for that specific reason, no.
Have you before?
Not for that specific reason. A lot of times it comes from a different reason for the stop.
Has any citations been made out after you stopped somebody and maybe they didn't have a driver's license? Have you made out a no driver's
Yes,
license
I've made-
citation?
I've had several, citations for no driver's license.
We need to keep moving.
I know. I think that if we get some sort of a agreement from the commissioners, I think you should bring it to the next city council meeting. And then I will call for a vote. And whether I have to abstain or not, we're gonna lose a pro vote, obviously. And we'll just have to see where the chips fall. Okay, moving on.
No, we need to hire.
Yeah, Anthony. No, yeah, yes, sir. Yeah.
So, yeah, you got, somebody needs to make the motion to hire him.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Greg to hire Anthony as city police officer at what wage? $16.50. Any discussion?
I'm gonna include myself, or exclude myself from voting on this, nothing against you, Anthony, but because I'm resigning, I don't feel that I should be voting on this.
Okay. Is there a second to Greg's motion? Second by Lindsay. All those in favor of hiring Anthony, Martin City Police Officer, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
One abstain. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Bush.
Sir, did you ever make a contract that they have to sign so that they?
It's nowhere close to something that can be signed, there's all kinds of blanks that need to be worked out, with finances, and again, there was that list that, if they wanna agree to the list, I'm not gonna spend thousands of your dollars completing the contract.
I mean, to, I think it's when they go to the.
We already have that, the training reimbursement.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
already have that.
We already have that one.
So we just give the money back.
Well, yeah, I believe you're still having your
have that.
officers.
Yes.
So how come that we didn't get money back from that? Cause he was dismissed.
And he was essentially terminated from that position. He didn't leave on his own. I think that's part of the
There's
stipulation, part of the
nothing, yeah,
contract.
there's nothing in the contract that says that, so if you want to change it, but you still have to pay a minimum wage for the time that they're there. So what you get back is the amount of your minimum wage.
Doug?
Last month, the council also said that they would, talk about giving him $500 to help with moving costs. I don't know if that issue is actually voted on or not.
We agreed upon it, didn't we?
Did we
I
vote
think
on that?
it was in executive session, so nothing was done.
Well, we agreed.
You have no authority to offer that,
Yep.
Yeah,
see if you get accepted.
So
If
I
you wanna
think
give them that, then you should vote.
we need to vote.
If it's a perk, if it's something over and above whatever you just hired them for,
yeah.
you should vote on it.
Just make a motion on that then.
Are you making that motion?
I mean, we agree, yeah, I mean, we should. That's what we give Doug the,
The
Permission to
authority
do
to
it.
offer it.
yeah, so I mean, I'll make that motion, yeah.
Motion by Jay to allow $500 stipend for moving expenses to the new officer. Is there a second? Second by Craig. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Abstain.
opposed? Huh?
Abstain.
Abstain. All those, in favor? Motion carried.
Sorry.
Blue,
Can I ask a question real quick? What's your guys' next year budget for law department?
300.
That's this year's,
That's this year's.
yeah. I can give you a copy of it.
I think it's close to the 375 range.
For how many officers?
4.
How many you got now?
4.
That's all I need.
We'll get your copy, Blue.
Thanks.
Of the new one, right? 2024 budget. Okay.
Which will that budget go up since, once they get certified then? Or is that at the 1850, that's budget?
That's what you guys agreed on in September. Nothing's, once you agree on that budget, that's budget. You go in there.
Right, but
Get a
what I'm saying is
supplement.
that budgeted figured at the officer's salary at 1650, 1750, or 1850?
It's whatever it is in there. I just, so, I mean, most of the time we never have a full, so you don't ever use it all up.
Okay. Carry over.
Being it's quiet, meeting ago, Jay asked, being we have those guys do your analysis test when we hire any new employees, we should do the same, being we're all here. So,
I did too.
Jay,
I did.
I
Me
did,
and Jay went right after the meeting up to
So-
the chief of police office.
I can't tell you guys to go take a urine test, but it probably would look pretty good if we all did that. It's,
You want me to go right now? Up to the hospital, make an appointment, for me to go up there? Is that what?
I think there's a conflict of interest at the hospital.
Can we do something?
Oh, come on,
can you
people,
Give me a test?
we need to
Yes.
move, we need
I
to
know.
move on.
I know.
Mr. Mayor, from the public, may I make a motion to move to the next article, please? Is there something on it? I appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is fire department. Chris, I believe you have the floor, finally.
No fireworks.
So, we are in the process of building a new rescue unit. Our Rescue One is the truck that we use for extrication. A lot of our structure firefighting gear is on that, our search and rescue gear is on that. We're replacing is an older diesel pickup, it's a stick shift, manual transmission. And we're finding that's getting pretty old, and we need a lot of numbers that can't drive a stick manual. So it's time to upgrade that. We were talking about it at the meeting the other day, and I think the last time that we asked for some help on a truck was about 2001. We bought engine 2, which is our 3,000 gallon tanker pumper truck that we still have. And
What year was that again?
2001.
2001, okay. It's been over 20 years since you've asked.
For some help with buying some trucks and stuff.
Oh, they need a manual, don't you?
We've come in for some, donations here and there, $1,000 here, $1,500 there. And I was kind of penciling it out when you guys were talking here on what we have, what we've done over the last 20 years. And we've purchased another, call it a super tanker. It's got a 1,250 gallon minute pump with a 3,000 gallon tank. A ladder truck, right? We have an emergency management trailer, these 2 rescue units that we currently have, and 4 brush trucks, all since then. About $2 million worth of equipment we've done in the last 20 years. So right now we get about $9,000 from the county, and the city is $14,000 a year.
Plus insurance.
Yeah, insurance doesn't cost us any money.
I know.
Put it that way. But that's what we
The
get
city
for
pays
it.
for the insurance on all their vehicles.
This is to cover our expenses, right? So I don't consider that an expense, but you guys do cover that
Yeah.
insurance, which is a big one, right? So we get about 25,000 a year, and our expenses average about 80,000 a year, 90,000 a year, so the rest of it's donations or the VIA contract or some of those, so we end up having to make up a lot of that ourselves. And, some of our trucks we've purchased used, so that's helped cut, some savings and stuff. So what we're doing with this truck is we bought a 2019 used diesel pickup Ford F550, and then we were able to find, we're gonna reuse our rescue box that we bought from an auction. We bought it for like $3,000, it's about a $30,000 rescue box we have in here, but, I think that it's gonna cost us about $100,000 to update a new rescue unit. That's gonna be our cost. For a rescue unit, that if we were to go buy it new, is probably about $250,000, $200,000, somewhere in there. So I'm asking for is $30,000 to help us with this.
Where are we gonna get the money?
Chris, where you guys at on the contract? I know that there were some issues with VIA and, what the deal, is that all taken care of?
We actually got pretty much everything we asked for.
Okay.
It took us a couple of years, but they did come back around and they actually went back to the old contract.
So you guys are good to go as far
Yeah,
as
we're
going,
under contract.
because I know
This
that was
year-
a shame, so.
This year is kind of a hardship for us. I mean, we have some expenses from fighting fires, grass fires on the reservation, the VIA, but we make that up in the contract. This year we didn't have any fires.
And have you What about the structure fires? I know it's a pain in the butt when you guys get called for structure fires, and by the time you get to Pine Ridge, obviously the trailer house is lost. I mean, but
Structure fires, so we don't get paid for structure fires at all. We've invoiced some, and we've been paid a few. Housing authority or private pay, we'll get some of those. Some of the benefits that I see going to structure fires in the reservation, we don't have a lot of structure fires in Markham, right? But going over there, the guys get a lot of practice, right? Keeps our gear and equipment, used often to make sure it's all operational and ready to go. So there's some benefits there. There is some cost for, mostly it's fuel, and there's some mileage on the trucks. It's not, mileage isn't a huge deal, but fuel is our major cost there.
have you guys approached like emergency management or the tribe at all to see if there's, can offset some of that cost?
Yeah.
Since you guys are the main department that gets called for structure fires.
We've
I
tried
see
quite a
you guys
bit.
all the time. But
We've tried multiple avenues, and we've kind of hit some roadblocks.
Okay.
Some of that ARPA funding, emergency manager was trying to get for us. The tribe, a couple of different times, has talked about giving us some funding. We haven't gotten anything yet, or received anything yet. Housing authority has paid a couple of times. They're kind of hit or miss. But we have saved some houses over there too. We had one just not too long ago. It was a housing authority house and a fire in the bedroom. They closed the door behind them. They kept that fire in the bedroom. We actually saved their house. They were back in there at night. There's some smoke damage. They probably shouldn't have been back in there. There's no motel in Pine Ridge. Where do you go? We saved the killer house over there. So this year alone, we probably saved 4 houses.
yeah, and you saved that one in basement during Christmas last year, so.
We probably lost another 50, right? But I mean, saving 4 houses that far away is substantial. I think.
Trailer houses are hard to fight fires.
They are.
I mean, they burn so quick.
And if your house is on fire and nobody shows up, that's just,
That's not good.
sucks. But we've had a lot where, this year especially, we've kind of stepped back a little bit. If it's an unoccupied house that's fully engulfed, we haven't gone. So we've stepped back a little bit, unless it's threatening something else. We've been to fires where the house was fully involved, and the house next door is just starting on fire. If nobody would've came, that house would've burned down too. So yeah, there are some expenses and costs we have there. But then again, when we do have grass fires, since we're kind of the responsive ones, they typically call us first, and we're the first ones out there and get the most hours on that fire, which we get paid by the hour, so.
Gotcha.
So in the past, that's what supported us in the past. That's how we're able to, between that and the grants we wrote, that's how we're at the point we're at.
So Chris, the state has that $3 or $4 million they put up, is that for fire?
We actually got, the highest award. I wrote that grant, and we got the highest award. There's only 5 or 7 departments in the state that got the highest amount, and we got that. And we're using that for is our bunker gear. All of our bunker gear, except for 2 sets, are expired. So we've been trying to write that grant for about 4 or 5 years now with Assistance to Firefighter grant, and we haven't been successful yet. So I haven't found the key to writing that grant, but we ended up writing some grants locally. And for Homeland Security, we got new radios, we got new self-contained breathing apparatuses, and now we've got some new bunker gear coming. So we'll have about 10 sets of bunker gear. So we have lots of needs, and we just try to pick the ones that fit into the grants, or the ones that we think are the highest priorities, and try to work towards those as much as we can.
I got a question, I apologize for probably not knowing it, but the rescue unit, is that like the first unit to go out pretty much on everything?
It's the first one for car wrecks, of course. It's usually the second or third truck for a structure fire, because it has breathing apparatus on it, it has tons of tools, it has fans, it has lights. So it's a critical unit for that. For any type of other rescue besides car wrecks, it's the one that goes out. Search and rescues, everything else, it has some big lights. We've sent out, we've used them on some different incidents we've had. I think the county's called us out for the lights a couple of times, and we'll throw them up. We use it. It goes out to the fireworks. It goes out so much. And it's probably one of the most used trucks on the
It's
department.
very valuable when it comes to car crashes. I mean, Chris, we've been, I don't know how many, and, you know, we had one in Yellow Bear that was really nasty, and if it wasn't for Martin, we'd probably still be out there trying to extricate him out. I think the B-pillar came off, the doors came off, the hood came off. I mean, by the time we got done, I don't think there was much left of the vehicle just to get the person out, and if it wasn't for the equipment that you guys have, it would have probably turned ugly real quick. Bottom of the curve there.
Yeah. So and it lights up a football field.
Yeah.
In fact, the lights went out the football field one time, we were going to go get it, play football. The football game they were having. So.
Chief, if we did want to do something like this, where would those funds be able to be pulled from?
I think you'd take it, I would take it out of the liquor fund. Which would, it would come out of your savings accounts then, it's just kind of built. Liquor fund has money in it that's been built up and built up.
Okay.
That's all I'm
We could have taken it out.
It's in a general fund, I
Oh,
mean, I mean, we keep half of it as a separate amount, but all that money is in
Again, this is
checking account.
one of the things I kind of look at. I mean, of course, that truck's not going in town a lot, right? It's usually going out the road and to some other fires and things, but yet Bennett County as a whole, it benefits, right?
Yeah, it goes to any structure fire in town, right? It's gonna go to, it's built to do everything.
Mhm.
That's the main, you know, that's the biggest,
So what
argument
colors
for
are
that.
gonna be?
Truck, what's that?
What colors are gonna be multi?
Red and white. Cause we're not gonna paint the truck,
Just don't make any traffic stops in it if it's black and white.
So, I mean, yeah, we use it, all over, it goes to,
What's your wishes, council?
I mean, we spend a lot, you know, on the golf course and everything else, and that seems to me to be reasonable that, that's gonna benefit our community. So I'll make the motion that we,
I'll second.
Hey, how much?
30,000, and take it out of the liquor fund.
Motion by Jay, second by Gloria, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. Next on the agenda is water main on School Street. Paul?
So Jobney put this on there, he's complaining that he doesn't have, he says pressure, but it's the volume, so his water line is pulled off of Dakota Street, as everybody on the north side of Dakota Street is, School Street is pulled from Dakota Street. It's one of those, whenever they built the town or whatever, they didn't put a main right down School Street in front of his house. So he's complaining about pressure, I think it's his volume, but
It's his volume.
you live all along there. I mean, my mom and dad, you just learned you couldn't water the yard and take a shower at the same time. You just,
What is the standard for the city for a service line?
there's state is inch now, so anytime you put any in, it's always in.
But is it 3/4?
His line,
Well, no, he told me tonight, because he told me to speak on his behalf, that the service line is 3/4 and then 1 inch across the street and 3/4. And with a 3/4 line, you have.
so it's 3/4 from Dakota Street up to a shop.
Correct.
From a shop back in 2002, he redid it because it used to come through Jerry Livermont's house.
Right.
And they had a valve in there that could shut it off. From his meter pit at his lot, it goes inch all the way to his house.
Right, he said it goes inch and then 3/4 back into his house.
You know, if his personal lines are that small, I think they're smaller than that though, because it was inch all the way into his house, we bored it.
I don't dispute, it's not a pressure problem, it's a flow problem. So what is the typical home served in the city of Martin? Is it 1.5 or 1.25, or is it an inch?
It varies, I put a meter pit in, they had a 1/2 inch line, it varies.
Yeah, we got 3/4 coming in my house.
Yeah,
Okay, well, with a 3/4, you only have 4 gallons per minute. With a 1.5, you have 16.5 gallons per minute. That's pretty significant. We're talking about a 75% difference. So when he's using the shower in his house, he's not getting much flow if he's using his sprinklers. And I would agree with you, he's gonna have to manage that. But the point is, a typical IHS or any typical home has about a 1.5 inch water service line minimum. At about a 3
feet per second velocity.
Change that, although we're ripping up water line clear back to, I mean, long way.
Yeah, Bookman's, all those coming from,
Yeah.
you go along it. I mean, it needs done. When we did the loop for 4th Avenue Apartments, we put a T there to eventually do that one day, but it all comes to funding. I mean,
So if it's a volume issue, can't we just do, we can't do a pressure tank or something close to the residence?
Why don't you just upgrade it from the line where it's tapped to where the 1 inch is with a 1 inch or 1.5?
you can't do it because it's under a building
Oh. You can't go around the building?
on somebody's property. I mean,
Property.
that's the issue. Back in the day, a lot of people owned both properties. Hey, we'll go across here, no big deal. Now other people own it. How do you?
But wouldn't it be should be a pretty easy fix for him, I mean, if he would consult with the plumber, I would think, to,
I'd be curious to see what size of lines are in his house. So like I said, we just did a house on Swallow Street, and she literally had a 1/2 inch line for service. She's never complained about pressure. Never.
It's a flow issue is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not a pressure
Yeah,
issue. It's a
I know
flow
that.
issue. So the thing is, he needs adequate water. What do you have at your house? Probably 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches?
Yeah.
no, it's about inch, yeah.
It's a big
rare to have
difference
inch and a
between
quarter.
3/4 and 1 inch.
And mine's teed off my neighbor's, or my neighbor's teed off of mine, so you just live with it.
Well, there's certain standards though that the city needs to incorporate when it comes to development of any type of new home or
New
structure.
construction, I agree.
Right, but the city also should really look at in long term, upgrading those service lines as well.
And we have done some.
Right.
We did private on the north side of town, so now we have a $400,000 loan that we're paying back.
All part of being a city.
Yeah.
I'll go kick that money tree in the back.
You know, I mean, typically, a 2-inch line is typically supposed to serve 3 homes. A 4-inch line typically serves 5 homes. So you have adequate flow to those particular homes. If you're talking a 3/4 inch line to a home, that is typically not adequate supply to that home. 4 gallons a minute is not adequate.
I would say 80% of the town is 3/4 inch lines.
At least, yeah. 'cause it's-
If not more, 90% maybe.
My water pressure changes if I do one or the other.
Well, if there's nothing
Water my
further
yard.
on water main, let's
So
move
is
on.
there something that,
You want done?
is there something you want it done? Who is?
Well, I think what he's asking is about that main that is supposed to have been up on that school street. I think that's what he's in reference to. Because at the time
He
when
wants a water
that,
main on School Street.
what's that?
He wants a water main on.
Well,
School
I think he wants the city to start planning for that, is what he's requesting. If you can't do that, then at least upgrade the service line. That's what he's more or less has informed me of. You know, IHS, get them involved. They have SDS funds to upgrade the water, that's put in the water line on that street.
Has he gone to IHS?
I don't know. All I know is this, IHS, when I worked there, we had several streets on this town to put as improvements. There's no reason why they can't do that, because his family's Native American. Any Native American on that home, on that street would qualify for IHS funds.
No, every time we apply for IHS fund, we get told there's no money. So,
Yeah, it's
IHS
definitely
built
easier
that
said
tower
than done.
there.
Same thing with the new housing, we asked IHS to help with that line. We were told, nope, there's no funding, so.
Because IHS doesn't do maintenance, they only do construction.
This is new housing,
But-
25 new houses.
Yeah, 40, I think is what.
Right, but see, the thing is, housing gets money for their water and sewer. Those funds from IHS were for typically new construction homes, not housing homes. That's the reason why IHS doesn't put those water and sewer infrastructure in there, because Congress gives the money to housing authority with the money already tagged in there for water and sewer. You can't double dip, in other words.
Well, I'd like to move on to sidewalks. I'm sure that's you also, Anthony.
I didn't put it on the agenda, so I don't know who.
Well,
But anyway, I would say that we had a very good conversation in November on the sidewalk grant. The only, question, there was quite a few people on that committee. Federal Highway Administration, tribal, state representatives, and the only question that came up was, why doesn't the city of Martin have an ordinance to require businesses to put sidewalks in? And I said, well, I can't really speak on behalf of the city regarding that question. I said, we have several council members who have sat in on our committees to discuss that. But I said, I think the city might be willing to entertain some type of ordinance to that effect, because I told them at the time that more than likely that the store that was put out there, I think it was Wynn's Dakota Mart, was that the first store?
No,
Family Store. There was no, I'm sure, no public feedback or comment to put a sidewalk just to, within the boundaries of that business. But now that you've got a whole bunch of businesses out there, it makes more sense. But this question, I believe, was fielded from a finance officer from Phillip.
We do have an ordinance on the sidewalks and businesses, because Butch put in a sidewalk, there's, your brother or somebody put in the sidewalk along where the video store.
That was abutting the property,
Yeah, right.
Is that just Main Street, or is that?
Main Street is the site.
But if there's any new business development, does the city require that business to put a sidewalk in?
No, we don't, I mean, we have an ordinance that says anything like that.
I guess that's the thing, is that's the only thing I took away from that meeting. So I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention, that that's something that you may want to consider for future business development in the city. And I know some people are opposed to that, because obviously it's gonna increase the cost to build that business. But I think a lot of municipalities now require that. I'm sure Rapid City probably does.
Streets, curb and gutter, the whole works.
Right.
Well,
I got a question for you, Anthony. Do you
Yeah.
have did you get this grant yourself, checked it all out and applied for that?
Well, with the committee and of course with the city's approval.
Okay,
They put me as the point of contact, and so I've been the city's point of contact for the grant.
so these grants that are out there available, I think Kevin had mentioned something, there's some grants out there, or somebody just mentioned it, grants out there for like some water projects or whatever. Are you able to look at some of that stuff for the city?
Well, to put the grant together, the Black Hills Council put the grant together on behalf of the city. And so I just, as a courtesy, worked with the grant writer, and I was kind of like the liaison, if you will, between the city and the grant writer. I basically just gave them the information, and the grant writer put the grant together and then submitted it to the state of South Dakota. And then part of that grant writing phase is the follow-up, which is the interview. There's 20 plus points for that. And then they score them, and we were in competition with some pretty heavy-hitting cities like Aberdeen, Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Pierre, Sturgis, and there was only like 2 or 3 small towns out of a list of 12. And the good news, I guess, from what I gathered from the interview, was all the people that were on that committee said this was a very good grant. So I'm very optimistic that the grant more than likely will get, funded, but don't take my words for that. We'll see come January.
Mayor, I can tell you what your ordinance says about sidewalk construction, so it's 6.110. It is the policy of the city that there are many areas of the city where a sidewalk is not practical, not possible, and not necessary, and therefore shall not be required along all public street rights of way. Sidewalks may be required only along those specific streets where, following study, it is reasonably determined by the city council that due to the increased vehicular traffic, increased pedestrian traffic, or close proximity to any school, that sidewalks would provide more than minimal safeguards for pedestrians walking along the specific street rights of way. So you basically retain the right to determine where you want them.
well, we've got 4 phases to the sidewalk, 5 phases. 5 phases to a sidewalk project. mainly from the grade school to the high school or around town.
Hospital, yeah.
And, right now, we're phase one. So,
When I was on the council, we used to pay half, but it got so expensive that the city couldn't afford it.
right,
20%, isn't it?
now, along those lines,
18.05.
I think Gene probably put a copy of these two letters I received about the sidewalk. And I think there's one in the community folder back there. And, the other one, young kids running around the neighborhood after hours. So, if you want me to read these out loud, I will. Otherwise, I just want to bring them to your attention.
Does anybody in the audience wanna read it, or should I get an extra one?
Yeah,
Somebody needs
I have
to
an extra
read it?
copy, you have mine, read it.
I think you just have one of the letters.
Is there more than one?
Yeah, there's a second one. if you wanna read it.
Oh, here you go, John.
That one's related to sidewalks, this was related to other stuff.
Okay, moving on. Oh, did you have a question, Don?
Yeah.
Or- Moving on, next on the agenda is wages.
I just did the
Proposal,
proposal there for
2024, 3%
2024, that would
raise
go in effect for the first,
across the board.
That's for your cost of living, right?
right? So,
I need a motion to approve it, right?
yeah, for 2024, that would,
Make a motion to approve the,
Wage
cost of living increase, wage increase for 2024.
Motion by Kevin to approve this wage increase of 3% across the board. Second by Greg. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Election of 2024. We have an agreement in your
I
document.
didn't copy the agreement, it's just
Oh.
combining, it's just an agreement combined with the school
School board.
for the election on the second Tuesday in April. And we do this every year,
Make a motion to
combined.
combine with the school election.
Motion by Kevin to combine, second by Jay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. I just signed it. Okay, park. What's with the park?
I contacted that Tallgrass Prairie Creek. And he wanted stuff that I don't need, I mean, he was asking questions that I don't know what you guys wanna do with that spot. So I told him you should contact Jay and ask him what your idea is behind that. So that's where I'm at.
We'll start working with them on it. There's also the Wellness Coalition and some of them. Would you guys be okay with me bringing them on board with helping?
I think the wellness coalition is dissolved.
Well, on Ireland, I guess. I did ask them if they would be interested in having some input on that. It's just, wellness of the community kind of thing, and she said she would be interested. So I just wanted to make sure that was okay to,
Invite her to the meeting.
yeah, invite her to the meeting.
Yes, Paul, do we have, horseshoe pits on there?
Mm-hmm.
They're right by the.
Lean juice there, yeah. They need some posts or some work done to them.
Cause we went down to, a park in Valentine, and I guess they have, the like cornhole bowls, or cornhole boards, but they're concrete, so they can't be damaged or anything. That people can come and play, and you don't have to drag your lawn boards around, so I thought maybe something like that, or
It's a good idea, yeah.
something to put in there. The only worries is, obviously, we wanna make sure there's no pavement, no concrete around, so you don't get the skateboarders thinking, hey, I'm gonna go ollie up there and grind, you know?
Mhm.
I know Gary likes to skateboard.
I think kind of maybe, well, with like Chris's, our hometown project or something, you know, what you've got going on there to kind of work with them a little too.
Do we have any, can we move on to building permits?
Have none.
Huh? Have none. Past due water bills, council.
Make a motion to handle the past due water bills, left and forward.
Second.
A lot better than last month. Motion
I have a
second,
feeling
Jay.
that this is only part.
You seconded it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Code enforcement.
Gene, these are just the nickels, right? Or is that the total?
That's the total.
Yeah,
The tribe's been, so we have some kind of program at the tribe that they've been paying a bunch of other people's water bills, so it's really helped.
okay. Complaints. The floor is open. No complaints?
No dog complaints, Bob?
I guess the only complaint that I wanted to bring up was the fact that we had that monstrosity in our town for the last week and a half. I finally left last night at about 6 o'clock.
I wasn't sure they could travel at night.
Well, they did last night, I got it all on video, and I contacted the state of South Dakota specifically about that matter, because that thing had 14 axles on it, and I'm, as a public concerned citizen of safety, of fire, first responders and police, and if that thing had 2 or 3 flat tires, what does it do to our public safety in this town? You know, they adjusted the stoplights, I'm sure you probably saw that. They took the cantilever beam and they raised it up higher to get the whole thing through, and it cleared it by just within inches. You know, and then as it migrated up the hill, it started getting closer to the south stoplight. And I don't know if anyone noticed, but I'm not sure if this is in relationship to that, but the 2 buttons down there, they're all damaged. And I don't know if they did that when they arrived in town, but I know they didn't do it last night, they were already damaged before they left. I don't know who did that. But I, as a citizen, had a concern just because of the fact is it's a 4-lane highway and it narrows down. And the state had said the reason why it sat in our city for over a week and a half is the state of Nebraska did not have the law enforcement personnel to escort it across the state of Nebraska.
They told you wrong.
That's what
it was
this-
an electric company. So Nebraska, they requested the permit to move it down towards Nebraska, but Nebraska, their wide load or whatever permits did not get to the electric company, and they didn't have the crews available to do what they did here, is raise the power lines, raise the stoplights, et cetera, that came in there. It wasn't a law enforcement issue, because they're not required to have law enforcement escort. They're only
Well, that's
required
what
to
I
have
thought.
pilot.
The South Dakota Highway Patrol called me and said the reason why is they didn't have the resources to get it across the state of Nebraska. But my concern as a citizen is that normal for that type of a facility, of building or transporter to be carrying that long? That thing was 120 feet long by 24 feet wide.
We've had boats, we've had everything.
Wind turbines, the blades. even-
Yeah, but those are narrower though, and I watched it as it left south of Martin, and then once it got narrower, there was 18-wheelers heading north. How were those 18-wheelers supposed to get on the edge of the curve? I think that's something that the city of Martin needs to let the state know, because we have, like you said, all these different things, but that's the biggest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
We've had that problem on the reservation for I don't know how long. State diverts them where they need to go, where the load can make it, and there's really not much you can do. And that's one of the reasons why they're only allowed to travel so many hours per day. They're not allowed to travel at night. They're not allowed to travel on weekends. And so they leave property. That actually is the 5th container, if I remember correctly, Anthony, because you were standing there when he was talking. I think he said it was like the 4th or 5th. Big, or well, load that they have taken down from Canada to go down to Texas for their infrastructure for electrical systems. That's why they were borrowing powers, I think.
Something to that extent.
So they've taken several other ones and they actually came through. We just must have missed it, or.
What's the reason as to why it was here was honestly what Kevin said also.
I think it's a generator or something to help with Texas because of the ice storms they had the last couple of years, and they were borrowing power from different states and diverting it down there. So they're bringing all that equipment down there to revamp their whole infrastructures to be able to hold the load. And
Wouldn't it be better to build it down there?
You would think, as an engineer, there, you would think it'd be more cost effective.
Somebody was counting beans and probably figured, hey, I'm saving $10 by shipping it than to build it, so.
Well, and it gets back to the safety issue. I'm concerned about the first responders. There's no way a first responder could have gotten around that had there been something south of town.
I had no trouble getting around it during the fall.
Yeah, they usually pretty good at moving off the way, the best they can. That's the reason why they're required to have several pilot cars. They're required to have X amount of tires. I think the last one we did over on the reservation was they were required to have twice the number of tires for each one of those trailers, so that way they'd have more than enough in case one of them goes. But that was one of my concerns, is when they were backing it up, and I'm looking at some of those tires, and I'm just kind of like, I've seen trailer house tires that go shooting across, and they got pretty low on some of the spots because of the pressure, but I'm just glad it's out of here.
Yeah.
Well, me too, because it was kind of like an ice line in a sense.
Well, I was more worried about somebody using it as a billboard.
If there's nothing else to come before this council meeting, I would entertain a motion to adjourn with our next meeting scheduled for
January 10th. 10th, not 9th.
Oh.
It's Wednesday, Wednesday's the 10th.
Make that motion to
Motion by Kevin, that was his last motion, unless. Is there a second? Second by Judy.
Merry Christmas, and it's been fun.